And we're on. Okay. So, today I'm thinking of stirring up a little bit of controversy. Yeah, let's see where this goes. So it started a little while. So first, a little background about me for those that don't know. I am an engineer, and I've been working in engineering for about 5 years now, and so that's given me an opportunity to work with engineers. I mean, become an engineer, work with engineers, interact with engineers, and just watch how engineers run their life. And so recently I've been at like a few presentations put on by engineers, and I just can't help but notice and realize how awful they are. There's just something about them where they're really bad at connecting with their audience. So they'll make a PowerPoint presentation, they'll have the slides. Oftentimes the coloring and the fonts are often bad, so they're difficult to read, and they put way too much information on the slide, so it's just like slide comes up and it's just like information in tiny little font that contrasts with the color, so like you can't read it, and they just start talking. And I find often one of the biggest problems is I don't even have a clear sense of what they're trying to get across. Like, what is the purpose of it? What am I supposed to get out of it? Because presumably, if they're giving a presentation, I'm there to learn something and take away a piece of information that I can then take and act on, and in some way change my own behavior to basically improve. So I'm going there to learn, to improve, and be better in what I do, in my job, in my understanding of how things work. That's the whole point. So if I'm not able to grasp the concepts or what the purpose is, and I'm not learning anything, improving from it, then there's a disconnect somewhere along the way. And I just find that oftentimes engineers, they're not very good at connecting with their audience. They have a topic in their head and they just kind of start talking about it, and they're more like they're talking at you as opposed to having a conversation about it and kind of learning and building. And oftentimes they're very monotone when they give their presentation, so it's like they're not even excited about it themselves. It feels like they're doing it because they have to do it, and there's just nothing inspiring and fun about it. And so you just end up like sitting there through like an hour-long presentation, and you're just like, I really enjoyed the free lunch I got out of this, but in terms of the presentation, I'm not getting anything out of it. And it started getting my mind kind of thinking about things, because I feel like, and this is going to be a strong word, but I feel like throughout university there was almost like this brainwashing about how amazing engineers are. We were brought up to believe that we're the smartest, and we're the hardest working, and we're the most talented, and we're the best, and basically that fucking engineers rule the world, right? That was our thing. But when I started looking at these professional long-term employed engineers giving presentations and not feeling inspired from them, not understanding them, it made me start to question, are engineers as amazing and godlike as we've been raised up to believe? And I know I'm not supposed to ask that question. It's a dangerous little question because engineers are the best, but I just started questioning things, and as I've been observing, I've noticed, and I mean, some of these things, they're not exclusive to engineers, but they're just something that I've noticed with the engineers that I work with, in that I feel like to a certain degree, because engineers have been led to believe that they're so amazing, they start to neglect a lot of very fundamentally basic things in how they live their life. Things like understanding basic nutrition, understanding basic fitness and working out, at least mildly regularly. Things like posture. It's something, it's so common for me to see people in the office just like hunched over their computers with like their shoulders up and like bent over, and it's just like terrible posture, and they're gonna have horrible back problems when they get older, and joint and carpal tunnel, and I had a list of other things, and I'm starting to blank right now. So what else was on my list? Yeah, so diet, exercise, posture, having a sense of style in terms of how you dress yourself or how you groom yourself. Engineers have a tendency to overwork themselves. They get caught up with, working lots of extra hours because you're trying to grind out a project, and you're trying to impress your manager, and so we have a tendency of working a lot of extra hours, lots of time in the office. Also, things like spiritual pursuits. I find engineers are often very focused on just getting their paycheck, but in terms of spiritually being, comfortable and okay with themselves, it's not really something that I see anyway they pursue. And so what I wrote down here was this thought that, on one hand, we think as engineers that we're so smart and we're so special, but at the end of the day, oftentimes this is what I see based on observing the people around me. At the end of the day, a lot of us end up living pretty unhealthy and, to a certain degree, empty lives of working lots of hours and chasing that paycheck, but not really having anything interesting or noteworthy that we're trying to accomplish with our lives. And I'm not here trying to like shit on engineers to say that, like, they're awful people or anything. They're really great people. I just think sometimes it would be great if they could start to see these things and just find ways of improving themselves. Because we do build lots of cool shit and build cities and, I don't know, make cars and computers and whatever, but does that have to come at the expense of completely neglecting the rest of your life? And I don't think so. And so I think if we looked at this on a more holistic life, body, body, mind, soul, heart kind of perspective, I think we could all live much more fun, interesting, exciting lives and build stuff. It doesn't have to be one or the other. So this was that's my thought on engineers. I think we have a lot of potential. We just miss out on great opportunities. Anyway, peace, guys.